The 1970s gave us disco, denim, and some truly bizarre trucks. We're talking T-tops, turbo rotaries, carpeted beds, and even convertible roofs. Here are the 15 rarest and weirdest 1970s pickups you never knew about. Number 15, 1970 Ford Ranchero GT Cobra Jet. The Ranchero wasn't new in 1970, but that year's GT Cobra Jet trim took things to another level. By this point, the Ranchero had fully embraced its muscle car DNA. Under the hood of the GT package was a 429 Cobra Jet V8, rated at 370 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque. You could pair it with a 4-speed manual, shaker hood scoop, sport suspension, and optional drag pack. Performance-wise, it was every bit a muscle car, with a bed, 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds, quarter mile in the high 13s. It could haul ass and haul tools. But the real kicker? Most people didn't spec it that way. Fewer than 1,000 were optioned with the Cobra Jet in GT trim. Even fewer survive in unmodified form today. Most collectors overlook it, focusing instead on Mustangs or Fairlanes. The Ranchero GT Cobra Jet is one of those rare 70s pickups that flew under the radar. Ford didn't advertise it heavily. It wasn't featured in car magazines, but with the right configuration, it might be the fastest car-truck hybrid of its decade. And while Ford was giving us muscle in disguise, Chevy's next move was about to bring street performance to the suburbs, with big blocks and black paint. Number 14, 1971 Chevrolet El Camino SS454 LS5. By 1971, the El Camino was a familiar face in the muscle car world, but that year's SS454 with the LS5 engine made sure it left a lasting impression. It wasn't just another utility vehicle, it was a Chevelle SS in disguise, packing full-size muscle under a truck bed. At the heart of the beast was a 454 cubic inch LS5 V8, factory rated at 365 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. But real-world figures often crept closer to 400 horses, depending on how healthy the engine and dyno were. Pair it with the M22 Rock Crusher 4-speed manual, and the El Camino became a burnout-happy missile that could tow a trailer and torch tires in the same afternoon. The 3.31 rear end gave it solid acceleration without killing drivability, making it one of the most versatile muscle machines of its time. What really makes the 71 SS 454 special is how few were actually built. Buyers were drifting away from high-performance vehicles thanks to rising insurance rates, tightening emissions, and the looming fuel crisis. Most opted for the flashier Chevelle Coupe or convertible, leaving the El Camino SS in the shadows. That makes original examples, especially with performance options like cowl induction, rally wheels, and power front disc brakes, incredibly rare today. To the untrained eye, it looked like a standard V8 El Camino. But if you ticked all the right boxes, you had a true sleeper that could humiliate GTOs and Mustangs before hauling plywood on Monday morning. The 1971 El Camino SS 454 wasn't built for the spotlight. It was built for those who wanted muscle without the noise. If that kind of under-the-radar muscle excites you, just wait until you see what came out of Wisconsin next. Number 13, 1971 AMC Cowboy Prototype. You've probably never seen one. That's because the AMC Cowboy never made it to production. Built in 1971 as a prototype, the Cowboy was AMC's answer to the Ford Ranchero and Chevy El Camino, a car-based pickup designed to blend utility with youth appeal. It rode on the Hornet platform, featured a unibody design, a sleek coupe-style front end, and a small integrated pickup bed that gave it clean, sporty lines. Under the hood, AMC planned to offer its trusty 232 and 258 cubic inch inline sixes, with the 304 V8 available for buyers craving a little more muscle. Targeted squarely at young, budget-conscious drivers, the Cowboy was meant to be affordable, quirky, and just left of center enough to stand out. And by all accounts, it nailed that brief. It had the right proportions, solid drivetrain options, and a unique look that set it apart from the typical Detroit steel of the time. So why didn't it happen? The timing couldn't have been worse. AMC had just acquired Kaiser Jeep, and with that came the rugged Gladiator pickup and off-road-ready CJ5. AMC's leadership feared the Cowboy would cannibalize Jeep sales, so they shelved it quietly. Only 2 prototypes were ever built. One still exists and occasionally appears at car shows and museums. The other? Lost to history, likely crushed. The Cowboy had real potential. It could have offered something fresh and compact in a market dominated by big body-on-frame pickups. Instead, it became one of the rarest trucks that almost was, a fascinating what-if in the world of automotive oddities. But AMC wasn't the only company thinking outside the box. Across the Pacific, Mazda was working on something even weirder, a rotary-powered pickup that made absolutely no sense on paper, but somehow still ended up on American roads. Number 12, 1974 Mazda Rotary Pickup REPU. This might be the strangest powertrain ever stuffed into a factory pickup. In 1974, Mazda released the REPU, or rotary engine pickup. Based on the B1600 chassis, it ditched the standard piston engine and instead used a 1.3-liter 13B rotary, the same engine found in RX series sports cars. It made just over 110 horsepower, but revved like a banshee. Paired with a 4-speed manual and rear-wheel drive, it was unlike anything on American roads. The REPU had unique badging, flared fenders, and a distinctive exhaust note that made it sound more like a chainsaw than a truck. It wasn't fast, but it was responsive. Mazda even equipped it with a tachometer in the dash, a rare sight for a pickup. It only lasted until 1977 due to emissions regulations and slow sales. Americans weren't ready for a truck with no low-end torque and a need to scream at 7,000 RPM to feel alive. But for a select group of gearheads, it became a cult favorite. Only about 15,000 were made, and most didn't survive the Rotary's fragile reputation. Today, clean Repus are some of the rarest Japanese trucks in North America. And while Mazda went light and loud, Dodge was about to take the opposite approach with gold trim, real wood, and factory swagger. Number 11, 1976 Dodge Warlock. Forget practicality. The Dodge Warlock was all about flair. Part of Dodge's adult toys lineup, yes, that was the real name. The Warlock was a factory custom truck meant to look more like a street rod than a work rig. You got a step-side short bed with gold pinstriping, wood-paneled bed rails, chrome wheels, fat tires, and bucket seats with a center console. Under the hood, a range of engines, but the most desired was the 440 big block V8. With the right gearing, it wasn't just a cruiser, it could move. And since it was a regular production model, buyers could walk into a dealership and order one straight from the brochure. The Warlock blurred the line between truck and showpiece. It wasn't built for hauling gravel, it was built for flexing on Main Street. Dodge offered it in a range of wild colors, like dark green Sunfire metallic and black with gold trim. It was strange, it was bold, and it somehow worked. Dodge leaned into the weird, and buyers responded. Only a few thousand were made between 76 and 79, and survivors in original condition are now prized collectibles. We're just getting started, and the weird is only going to get weirder. If you're into rare muscle trucks, off-road mutants, and forgotten factory freaks, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Let's get back into it. If the Warlock was Dodge's swagger move, then Chevy's next truck was their mic drop, the loudest, fastest factory pickup of the decade. Number 10, 1978 Chevrolet C10 Big 10 Bonanza 454. When the emissions era dulled most trucks, Chevy found a way to bring back the thunder. The Big 10 Bonanza was technically just a trim package for the C10 pickup. But in 1978, it came with a hidden gift. Because of federal regulations, trucks over 6,000 pounds gross vehicle weight weren't subject to the same emissions rules as cars. So Chevy loaded up this half-ton with heavy-duty suspension, wider tires, and, most importantly, the optional 454 V8. It produced 240 horsepower and a mountain of torque. Paired with a turbo 400 transmission and a 3.73 rear end, the Big Ten 454 could light up the rear tires like a muscle car. It wasn't advertised as a performance truck, but real gearheads knew what it was. The Bonanza trim added upscale features like two-tone paint, plush interiors, and rally wheels. It looked classy, but under the hood it was pure trouble. Most people passed over it for smaller, more fuel-efficient options. But those who ordered the 454 option got one of the last true big blocks of the decade. Still with us? Then hit that like, subscribe, and stay tuned because the next batch of weird pickups includes diesel oddities, 4x4 unicorns, and forgotten off-road monsters. All right, time to ditch the chrome and bring on the dirt. The next truck didn't care about plush interiors or paint codes. It cared about looking mean and driving even meaner. With lifted suspension, bold graphics, and enough attitude to make a Bronco back off, Dodge unleashed one of the toughest-looking pickups of the era. Number 9, 1978 Dodge Macho Power Wagon. If the Warlock was flashy, the Macho Power Wagon was downright unhinged. Released in 1977 and continuing into 1978, the Macho Power Wagon was part of Dodge's mission to make trucks cool again. It was loud, lifted, and painted like a Hot Wheels car. You got bold Macho Power Wagon decals slapped across the bedsides, color-matched roll bars, blackout trim, and factory lift kits that gave it real off-road presence. Power came from Dodge's usual suspects, most notably the 360 and 400 cubic inch V8s, with some rare 445s finding their way into certain trucks. Manual transmission, optional, four-wheel drive, standard. This wasn't a poser. It could crawl through trails as easily as it cruised the local drive-in, but it was rare even in its day. Most buyers stuck with plain trucks. The Macho package was expensive, loud, and not exactly subtle, but that's what made it legendary. Today, clean examples are nearly impossible to find. The roll bars rusted, the decals faded, and the trucks were usually beaten to death off-road. But if you do spot one, you're looking at one of the wildest factory 4x4s of the decade. And while Dodge shouted with bright paint and bold stripes, GMC went full stealth mode, creating a luxury truck that almost nobody saw coming. Number 8, 1977 GMC Sierra Grande Crew Cab 4x4 Camper Special. While everyone else was downsizing or dressing up their pickups, GMC went big, literally. The 1977 Sierra Grande Crew Cab 4x4 Camper Special was massive for its time. It offered 4 full-size doors, a long bed, and factory four-wheel drive, an incredibly rare combination in the late 70s. Designed with RV and fifth-wheel towing in mind, it came standard with heavy-duty suspension, trailer tow mirrors, and a reinforced rear axle. Most were powered by either the 400 or 454 cubic inch V8s, giving them ample grunt for pulling huge loads. And despite being a workhorse, the Sierra Grande package loaded it up with premium trim, wood grain panels, velour seating, air conditioning, cruise control, and AM/FM radios were all on the table. Only a limited number were built with the full combination of crew cab, long bed, and four-wheel drive. Most dealerships didn't even stock them, and buyers had to special order through fleet channels. That's what makes surviving examples so incredibly rare today. These trucks weren't glamorous, but they were built to last and quietly became the blueprint for modern heavy-duty pickups. Made it this far? Then you've definitely got opinions. Drop a comment and tell us which truck you think is the weirdest so far, or which one you'd actually drive. We're halfway through, and the next ones only get stranger. GMC built quiet giants, but Ford took a completely different approach, adding more glass, more visibility, and a roof that folded away. Number 7, 1979 Ford Courier Sunray Convertible, custom order. If you've never heard of the Ford Courier Sunray Convertible, it's not your fault. It was never advertised, never sold in large numbers, and most Ford execs didn't even know it existed. The Courier was Ford's compact pickup, built in partnership with Mazda. It was a modest truck, small, efficient, and fairly boring. But in 1979, a Florida-based company called Sunray Companies offered a factory-approved Courier convertible conversion through select dealerships. They took regular Couriers, chopped the roofs, reinforced the chassis, and installed soft tops. These conversions were done in extremely limited numbers, estimated between 200 and 400 trucks total. The result was a compact rear-wheel drive pickup with a drop-top roof, available in loud colors like red, yellow, and sky blue. Some even featured chrome trim, rally wheels, and side decals that looked straight out of a surfer's dream. Power came from a 2.3-liter four-cylinder engine, making around 90 horsepower. It wasn't fast, but that wasn't the point. It was sunshine on four wheels. A cruiser, a beach truck, something fun, weird, and utterly unique. Today, almost none survive. The convertible frames rusted, the soft tops rotted, and because they were never officially documented in Ford catalogs, many got scrapped as oddball one-offs. Ford was experimenting with playfulness. Meanwhile, Chevy was preparing something far more muscular for the decade's last gasp. Number 6, 1979 Chevrolet El Camino Royal Knight. The El Camino was winding down by 1979. Performance had faded. Emissions were killing the fun. But Chevy wasn't done just yet. Enter the Royal Knight, a rare factory-ordered appearance package available on the El Camino SS. It brought back just a hint of muscle car flash with special decals, Firebird-style hood graphics, a blacked-out grille, and turbine wheels. But it wasn't just about looks. Underneath, buyers could still spec the Royal Knight with a 350/8 paired to a 4-speed manual. It made around 170 horsepower, not impressive by today's standards, but enough to move the lightweight chassis with some authority. A few were even ordered with Chevy's rare 3.08 limited slip differential, giving them decent off-the-line punch. It was a sleeper in a disco suit, and because it was the final year of the 5th-gen El Camino, it didn't stick around long. Chevy killed the design after 1979, and most Royal Knights were driven hard and left to rot. Today, they're tough to find in original condition. Many had the decals removed. Others were rebadged or modified. But for collectors, a factory Royal Knight is one of the last quirky reminders of when muscle and practicality still shared the same body. The next entry wasn't exactly a pickup, but it sure acted like one. It came with a removable roof, off-road attitude, and just enough oddball charm to earn a spot on this list. Number 5, 1979 Plymouth Trail Duster Sport. If the name doesn't ring a bell, that's because the Trail Duster spent most of its life hiding in the shadow of the Dodge Ram Charger. But in 1979, Plymouth decided to get weird and gave us the Sport trim. The Trail Duster Sport was a full-size two-door SUV with removable roof panels, a short bed configuration, and factory off-road capability. Technically not a pickup, but close enough to make this list, especially because many were sold with the rear seats deleted and the rear end converted for light hauling. It shared its chassis, engines, and body panels with the Ram Charger, so you could spec it with a 318, 360, or even the massive 400 V8. Four-wheel drive was available, and the roof came off entirely, making it one of the few semi-convertible utility rigs of the era. The Sport trim brought in color-matched wheels, bold exterior stripes, roll bars, and upgraded interiors with bucket seats and wood grain accents. Think of it as Plymouth's attempt to make a beach cruiser out of a 4x4. It didn't sell well. People were confused by the brand overlap with Dodge. Production numbers were low, especially for the Sport variant. Most were driven hard, rusted out, or converted into trail rigs. Today, they're borderline extinct. A clean 1979 Sport Trail Duster is rarer than a Bronco of the same era and twice as strange. We're almost there, folks. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned because the final 4 are even rarer, stranger, and more unforgettable. Now, while Plymouth dabbled in convertible off-roaders, Dodge had one last trick up its sleeve, a muscle truck that sounded like thunder and looked like trouble. Number 4, 1979 Dodge Lil Red Express. This one's a legend. The Lil Red Express was Dodge's loophole masterpiece. In 1978 and 1979, emissions regulations were hitting cars hard, but light trucks, they had more wiggle room. Dodge exploited that gap and gave the world a factory muscle truck with absolutely zero subtlety. Powered by a 360 cubic inch small block police spec V8, it pushed 225 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. Numbers that don't sound crazy today, but were huge in the late 70s. It came with a 727 torque flight automatic, 3.55 rear gears, and no catalytic converters. This thing ran the quarter mile in the high 14s and hit 0 to 60 in under 6.5 seconds. That made it the fastest American production vehicle in 1978. But it wasn't just speed, it looked wild. Cherry red paint, stacks behind the cab, gold pinstriping, wood-paneled bed, chrome wheels. It was cartoonish and glorious. Only about 7,000 were made in 1978, and fewer in 79 due to stricter regulations. But for 2 glorious years, the Lil Red Express turned heads and shredded tires. Today, it's one of the most collectible trucks of the decade, and one of the only true muscle trucks ever built right from the factory. Still here? Then you're one of the real ones. Hit that like, subscribe, and drop a comment with your favorite so far. If you like the loud, flashy rebels of the 70s, get ready for something a little more rugged, because the next pickup wasn't built to show off. It was built to survive. Stripped down, mean-looking, and born for the dirt, this off-road bruiser came with serious trail cred right out of the gate. Number 3, 1979. International Scout SS2 pickup, custom half cab. By the late 70s, International Harvester was already phasing out its Scout lineup, but not before giving us one last curveball. The Scout SS2 with a half cab pickup conversion. The SSII, or Super Scout 2, was originally designed as a lightweight off-road package to compete with the Jeep CJ. It came with no doors, a soft top, steel tube doors, and fiberglass body panels. But here's the twist. International allowed certain dealers and fleet customers to custom order half-cab pickup conversions that replace the soft top with a steel or fiberglass cab and a short truck bed configuration in the back. The result? A tiny 4x4 pickup that looked like it rolled straight out of a military surplus yard. You could spec it with a 345 cubic inch V8, 4-speed manual, Dana 44 axles, and rugged steel bumpers. It had trail capability, decent torque, and a utilitarian charm that Jeep couldn't match. And while it was never mass-produced in pickup form, a handful of Scout SS2 half cabs exist, mostly built for forestry services, ranches, or special fleet clients. These trucks weren't just rare, they were undocumented. No official production numbers, no catalog listing, just a few lucky survivors that today are worth their weight in gold. International's final oddball was proof that even utility brands could get weird. But while IH was going off-road, Chevy was dipping back into luxury one last time. Number 2, 1979 Chevrolet Beau James. You want weird? Try a luxury trim designed for gentlemen on a half-ton pickup. The 1979 Chevrolet Beau James was a limited edition appearance and comfort package offered only on the C10 Silverado. Named after a 1920 song and modeled after a Southern gentleman vibe, the Beau James came finished in two-tone silver and blue paint with special badging, unique striping, and polished aluminum trim. Inside, it featured a custom blue velour bench seat with matching headliner, shag carpeting, tilt steering, cruise control, and more wood grain than a formal dining room. Buyers could spec it with the 350 or 400 small block V8, and even though it wasn't marketed as a performance truck, it drove like one thanks to heavy-duty suspension and quick ratio power steering. Only about 3,000 were made, and most were sold in the southern U.S., making them rare outside states like Texas, Georgia, and Alabama. Many were bought as stylish work trucks for farm owners, contractors, or small business types who wanted just a little extra flair with their function. Today, the Bo James sits in that sweet spot between forgotten trim package and collectible oddball. If you see one in original condition, you're looking at one of Chevy's most bizarre attempts at classing up a pickup. And if the Bo James was Chevy's idea of Southern charm in a work truck, the next entry flips the script entirely. This one wasn't built for hauling hay or cruising the back roads in comfort. It was built to dodge taxes, haul surfboards, and turn heads for all the weirdest reasons. Number 1, 1978 Subaru Brat. This might be the only truck in history built to dodge a tax, with seats bolted into the bed. The Subaru Brat, short for Bi-Drive Recreational All-Terrain Transporter, was created in direct response to the U.S. chicken tax, a 25% tariff on imported trucks. To get around it, Subaru added 2 rear-facing jump seats in the bed, complete with seatbelts. Why? So it could be classified as a passenger vehicle, not a pickup. And it worked. Mechanically, the BRAT was simple but reliable. Early models came with a 1.6-liter flat-four engine and four-wheel drive, an early nod to Subaru's now signature AWD reputation. Later models added turbo options and bigger engines, but none of them were ever fast. Still, the BRAT excelled off-road thanks to its lightweight, low center of gravity, and surprisingly rugged underpinnings. It came standard with bizarre but charming touches, carpeted wheel wells, T-top roofs on later models, and of course, those legendary plastic seats in the cargo bed. Riding back there was legal, barely, terrifying, and unforgettable. Even President Ronald Reagan owned one on his California ranch, a fact that only boosted its cult status. Despite being produced into the early 1990s, very few survive today in good condition. The Brat was too small, too weird, and too ahead of its time. And that's exactly why it deserves the number 1 spot. The 1970s weren't subtle, and neither were these trucks. While everyone else remembers muscle cars, gas shortages, and disco lights, these forgotten pickups were breaking rules in their own strange ways. Convertible couriers, Viper-powered farm rigs, purple El Caminos with Targa roofs. Every one of them tells a story, and none of them fit the mold. So which one was your favorite? The loudest? The weirdest? The one that shouldn't have existed but somehow did? Drop it in the comments, subscribe, hit that like, and get ready. Because more forgotten rides, insane factory builds, and automotive oddities are coming your way.